Okay, and we are live, ladies and gentlemen. If you're watching on the replay, feel free to skip ahead, but I'm going to start the intro right now, and I'll see you guys in a few minutes here. I know the chat is going crazy because I was like 2 minutes late. You know, I just, ooh, what day is it today? 12/1. Yeah, you know what? Again, I'm going to say it again. You're being subversive. I don't want to hear it. Be quiet. All right, see you guys soon. So true. I'm telling you, Vince-Dow nationalism, literally the future of the Republican Party. You cannot stop it. Yo, look, I'm the baby now.
This monument will never be desecrated. These heroes will never be defaced. From this day forward, a new vision will govern our land. From this day forward, it's going to be only America first. America first.
John, thoughts on Vince-Dow nationalism?
Oh, I mean, I've been campaigning that for the better part of 3 years now. Before I even knew Vince, it actually appeared to me in a dream, and I just have sort of been trying to like subtly, when they say John Doyle dog whistles, he does, but not in the way they think. It's always about Vince-Dow nationalism. They say I'm like a white nationalist. No, I'm a Vince-Dow nationalist.
Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo as long as we are led by politicians who will not put America first. Then we can be assured that other nations will not treat America with respect, the respect that we deserve. The American people will come first once again.
Millions of Americans sincerely love Donald Trump. They love Donald Trump because no one else loved them. The country they built, the country their ancestors fought for over hundreds of years, has left them to die in their unfashionable little town, mocked and despised by the sneering half-wits with finance degrees but no actual skills who seem to run everything all of a sudden.
Okay, and we are live, ladies and gentlemen. Can you guys let me know really quick if you can hear me? Because we just had a mini incident with the microphone here. I basically knocked it off, and that was a fun time. So please let me know if you can hear me, because I don't want to have another 12-1 audio incident. Actually, now that I say that, everyone's probably going to be like, I can hear you, but I'm going to say I can't hear you just to mess around. I trust Thompson. See, I trust Thompson Spence. So Thompson Spence says he can hear. So let's see. I don't know. Wow. Let's see. Wait, but if you could hear me, how are you saying no? Oh, see, there you go. There you go. You see the subversion there? See? No to what? What question was I asking then? If you could, I knew it. The fan base as usual. They think they can get the best of me. They think they have the wits over me. It's not true. I'm always too fast for you every single time. Okay. But anyways, welcome to tonight's stream. As you guys may have heard today, and this is kind of the main topic of tonight, is that the Supreme Court will be hearing a challenge to Mississippi's abortion law, which is one of the first major abortion cases that this new supposedly conservative Supreme Court is going to be hearing. Now, I'm sure you've heard about that. Now, I'm sure you've also heard that there is a small possibility. I'm not going to say that it's guaranteed to happen. It probably won't realistically. I'm praying, obviously, but there's a small possibility that you may see the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Realistically, probably not, but let's hope so. We could at least hope that hopefully the Supreme Court comes through and does something, which, of course, is going to once again spark an entire, abortion debate, okay? Now, let me just say that I'm going to comment on the whole thing, but let me just say that this stream or this replay, however you're watching it particularly, is not exactly designed at your average pro-choice atheist liberal. Quite frankly, it's not. I think there's been a lot of kind of argument already in that circle. Is abortion murder? Blah, blah, blah. The whole pro-life, pro-choice debate. And quite frankly, to the pro-choicers, to the liberals at this stage where, the arguments have been made clear. Quite frankly, I have nothing to say to you. I mean, I don't. I have nothing to say to you other than I will be praying for your soul because, you deeply believe and condone something that is wicked and evil and murder. And that's really all I have to say to you. What this stream more particularly is kind of an address to is actually the people who are supposedly conservatives, right? The people on the right who, many of them, will profess to be pro-life, but seem to basically toe this line of well, it's not really quite the right time to touch Roe v. Wade, right? And people are going to think this stream is particularly only about Miles Edgeworth, only about that guy. It's not. Because I've been seeing throughout the community today, and maybe it's because I'm exposed to election Twitter. Thank you, Red Eagle. Thank you. You make me be in the presence of these idiots all day long. But maybe it's only on there, but I'm seeing a quite high number of Republican, conservative, quote unquote people say stuff along the lines of, well, if we overturn Roe v. Wade, that's going to hurt us in the midterms. No, it's too soon with the midterms. That's going to increase Democratic turnout or whatever it is. Okay. And that's really the specifically the exact thing I wanted to address tonight. This whole, we can't overturn Roe v. Wade. We can't touch abortion because that's going to help the Republican Party in the midterms. I mean, that's going to hurt, the Republican Party in the midterms. This is really, and all the arguments surrounding this are truly the kind of meat and bones of what I'm going to talk about tonight, okay? Now, let me start off by laying out, I think, two fundamental premises here, okay? Which is number one, and this is very basic, okay, but you got to say it. I've got to say it to kind of set the premise here, set the tone, that abortion is murder. Abortion is murder. And in the context of our society, abortion is genocide. I mean, there's no other way to put it. It's genocide. Now, number two, abortion is so wicked, abortion is so evil that, frankly, any society, but also even partially on a practical sense, right? Any society that encourages abortions and discourages the creation of families, any society that, discourages childbirth and encourages the murder of that nation's young, that nation, that society is bound to fall. That society is bound to collapse. And quite frankly, that's a society that deserves to collapse. Okay, that's a nation that deserves to fall. I must take a sip of coffee here for dramatic effect. And that's all to say, that's all to get to this point, essentially, which is that abortion, to not even just a Christian, to really anyone who is authentically pro-life, because if you truly are pro-life, that very phraseology in itself starts with the underlying premise that what is in the womb is a life, okay? And even really outside of specifically, authentically Christian morality, most sort of Western morality kind of presupposes that the taking of innocent life is wrong. I mean, for the most part, right? Hopefully for the most part. But that's all to say that to set this exact premise to the electability people, to the people who are like, but my red wave, my midterms, abortion is not another political issue. Abortion is not an issue akin to tax cuts or social security reform or healthcare or even something like immigration. It is none of those things. You know, it's not just another political issue that you can go along and say, well, is it more practical to touch now, later? What's the most kind of feasible, pragmatic way to approach this? No, there's no compromise on human life. There is none. And I don't want to hear your shit. I mean, quite frankly, I don't. I don't care. Like, the Republican Party can crash and burn, and, you know, Democrats can win the next midterm by a landslide and, you know, pass every other left-wing policy, and that would be worth it to me if it were for the ending of abortion. Because to me, that is the moral absolute, right? Life is the moral absolute. Now, obviously, that's a false dichotomy, but I'm just throwing out to you in theory, right? That is a false absolute, okay? And again, that's to say, this is not another political issue, okay? So, you know what? If you want to talk to me about, you know, what is the electoral advantage of something like infrastructure or taxes or social security? Yeah, maybe I'll sit here and tell you, well, you know, let's talk about this. Is it smarter to do this now, later? What's the most strategic time and way to do this? That's not abortion. And I know you election people like to treat everything like it's just the same football game of electoral politics, but that's not how I see abortion, okay? It's not just another political issue to be, you know, done spending bills and whatnot. It's not. It's not. Okay? And so again, then now to get into the meat and bones of part of it, okay, and we're gonna kind of address this whole argument. We're gonna address the whole electability argument, what is good for the election. But let me first say that, again, if you are someone who is pro-life, and I think any honest conservative, an honest person who, you know, listens to the arguments without, you know, the kind of, you know, really the case against abortion always comes from the selfish sense of, well, I will or want to be promiscuous and, you know, have a bunch of premarital sex and whatever, and, you know, therefore, I would like to have that option in case I get a chick pregnant or I get pregnant, right? And, you know, of course, we expect that, but but again, if you are someone who says you are pro-life and you admit, and being pro-life inherently, you know, I know people like to say, I'm pro-life, well, but sometimes I'm mostly pro. No, I mean, if you're authentically pro-life, you believe that abortion is murder. And let me just say, I know I don't usually get like this preachy or whatever, but if you are basically, you know, valuing the victory of your stupid, incompetent, and they are stupid and incompetent political party's victory in the next midterms over, again, the genocide of the unborn, you know, there's something morally wrong with you. There is. There's something wicked and evil and carnal in your heart, you know, and you need to get that fixed. I mean, I don't know what else to say about it. It's just evil. And really, you just say the phrase out loud. You know, like, that statement in itself is evil. Oh, we should not stop the murder of babies because that'll hurt Republicans in the next election. I mean, do people hear yourselves? Do you people seriously hear yourselves? Like, there's not else much to say. What you're saying, what you are saying out loud, and maybe if you say it out loud more, you would kind of, you know, realize what you're saying out loud is just evil. I mean, it's very deeply immoral, okay? And like I said to the atheist liberals, equally to you, I have to pray for your soul because there is something deeply carnal in your heart. I mean, there is. Now, with that being said, let me also say, if now is not supposedly the right time to touch abortion, right, as someone else said in the chat, and it's so true. Repent of the wickedness in your heart. It's so true, Thompson. When is the right time to you, to the electability people, to touch abortion? I mean, when is it? To me, it's tomorrow, right? To me, not even tomorrow. To me, it's today. But to you, what then is the right time? I mean, when are we going to do it? Because people say, well, it's going to hurt us in the next midterms. Elections happen every 2 years in America, right? And it's not even like the midterms are next month. We have a little bit under a year off from the next midterm. So it's not like we're super even that close to the next midterms. But I mean, with that being even being said, again, national elections happen every 2 years. There is no scenario, like there's absolutely no scenario in which overturning Roe v. Wade doesn't impact the next election. I don't care if you do it now, 2023, 2024, whenever. It's going to impact the next election. Like there is no getting out of that. There's no way that something as impactful as, overturning one of the most major Supreme Court cases in our country on an issue that is, important on both sides to a lot of people. There's no scenario in which that's not going to impact the election. And so when do you want to do it? And that's the exact answer, is they never want to do it. Right? They never want this issue touched, which again really circles back to my other point is, are you really someone who considers yourself, how can you consider yourself pro-life or a moral person, or really even be like really believing in an actual vision for this country, right? And that's exactly, I think, what the issue is. Gavin Wax made a very good point on this today, articulated this very well, which is the fact, this whole, but that'll hurt us in the next midterms. And I notice this a lot, and honestly, it is probably the case that when you make your entire personality the analysis of elections and the whole, it's not really about what's actually happening in our country. It's like, whoa, I want to be my red wave 2022 map to be vindicated, right? But the reality of the situation is elections are not the end, okay? What is the point of winning elections? Why do we want to win elections? Well, if you ask election Twitter, you want to win elections so that, I don't know, we can continue to LARP and we continue to play this game and we can, post our maps on Twitter and compare our maps. Oh, but you said Collin County's +10. I think it's +9. Let's debate, bro. Okay, but in the real world, like the real Americans in this country, the reason why we want to win elections is to impact policy. That is the reason why. We elect people to office. Okay, Civics 101. We elect people to office because we want to see those people impact policy. Again, elections are not the end. Elections are a means to an end. That end being the impacting of policy. And that's to say, what is the point of winning elections if you are not going to impact policy? What is it? And this is a point Gavin Wax made today. Very well articulated. It's so true. What is the point of winning elections if you are not going to impact policy? The very precise reason why we, elected Trump, right, in 2016 and elected a Republican Senate over the past 4 years, in theory at least, was so that we could impact conservative policy, one such being the appointment of supposedly at least conservative judges to supposedly rule in our favor, and, rulings are in themselves policies, so rule in our favor and to enact conservative policy. That is the entire point of it. If you are not going to implement policy or be in favor of implementing policy when Republicans are elected, then why elect the Republicans? And if that's the Republican Party we're going to have, I am not going to vote for that Republican Party, because I vote for the Republican Party in theory so that we have conservative policy. If there's no conservative policy, there is no point to the Republican Party. Okay, the only point to it is so that the basement caucus on election Twitter can spur doubt over election maps. I mean, that's really what it's all about. That's really what it's all about. So quite frankly, I don't care about your red wave can literally crash and burn. Okay? If, number one, you're not going to impact conservative policy at all whatsoever, but also, number two, more importantly, if you're not going to take a stand on the biggest, atrocity, the biggest genocide that's happening in our country, the outright murder of the unborn, quite frankly, screw your red wave. I mean, seriously, I don't care. I don't want to hear it from you. And also, this is a point that Red Eagle made, and this is another good point. When is the right, and kind of going back to what I was previously saying of when is the right time to do it, it should also be pointed out that even from your psychotic, sociopathic practicality argument, this whole utilitarian argument as if somehow, God's creation in the womb is, something that can just be, it's just a political pawn to you. But even so, now, there has never been a better time to overturn Roe v. Wade. Why? Because we're already on track to do very well in the next election anyway. Are we forgetting this? Right? Democrats are, extremely, extremely unpopular right now. You just take a look at the polls and whatnot. I mean, they're due to get rocked in those next year's midterms. I mean, they are. And so, considering that Republicans are basically destined to win pretty big next year anyway, now is the perfect time to touch it. Because whatever supposed electoral hit you're going to get of the angry feminists all showing up, which I will admit is a real thing. You're going to piss off a lot of people, understandably. Yeah, the world, the world hated Christ too. And to an extent, it still hates Christ. Like, we know that. You're going to anger a lot of people by doing this in the short term. Yes, I will actually concede. You'll probably get higher Christian turnout too, but I will actually concede it'll probably hurt you in the next election. But I'm saying that's a risk I'm willing to take. But, even so, at least we're talking about an upcoming election where we're supposed to win by a lot, right? As compared to, let's say, 2024 or 2026, where hypothetically, it's probably going to be much closer election than that. It's thinner margins. And so something like Roe v. Wade is much more likely actually in the future to have a much bigger impact as compared to if we did it now. Like, do people take this into account? Now is the perfect time because you have such a high margin of error because you're going to win so big. You have a high margin of error, even from a practical standpoint, to kind of play around with that. But, of course, what it really boils down to, I would argue, is that these people don't ever want abortion to be touched, and they can signal about Roe v. Wade all they want. They can, support pro-life. You're not authentically pro-life. And you're not authentically conservative. And again, you're red. I don't care about your red wave. Like, literally, you people make me want to root against a red wave happening, precisely because that way I can be like, well, see, screw your red wave. But, I guess that's also assuming that abortion were banned, which, it probably won't be, but it's a discussion to be had, right? So, and I will also say, even if it is something that in the short term doesn't help Republicans in the next elections, which, again, I don't care about. The issue of abortion genuinely is more morally important to me than your petty other politics. It is. Even so, I would argue that banning abortion is not only something that helps conservatives in the long run, but in order to maintain not maintain, because we haven't maintained it, but to rebuild a conservative nation and a conservative people. Or that's the case I was going to make before we had a 12-1 incident, okay? So that's my bad. Let's wait. Let's wait for this thing to fix itself, all right? All right. As I was saying, I think we should be back now. Hopefully. Yep, we're good. Okay. So, look at that. I was just in the midst of saying I was rudely interrupted, and it rudely interrupted me again. Wow. Satan is out in force today, huh? What's the matter, huh? You don't want me talking about abortion? Too bad. Murderers. Look at that. It's not chocolate milk. It's actually coffee. I just put creamer in it because I wasn't in the mood to get absolutely killed by black coffee, the absolute bitterness state of that stuff. But yeah, YouTube is committing a psyop. It's so true. Okay. Anyways, as I was saying, I again would argue that it is something that is actually vital. Like, it's actually, I think, central to a true conservative reclamation of this country that abortion is outlawed. A big reason is, I think, obviously number one. No, let us kind of recognize there is a tendency to sort of separate a lot of the movements that came out, the liberal movements, the liberal revolutions that came out of the 1960s. But quite frankly, a lot of them are much more similar than you may think they are. But I would say, that's to say, and I would say very centrally, number one, abortion is basically a foundational necessity for the sexual revolution to have existed and to have happened in the way that it did. right? Because you look at kind of the state of society today and the relationship of society today, as it relates to sex. And, we know the story here, okay? Hookup culture is widespread. A combination of kind of that plus just the feminist, like, anti-marriage, anti-family kind of, all that stuff in the culture, whatnot, what have you, right? You definitely see that, now obviously the sexual revolution and all that stuff, hookup culture, whatever, has been bad in itself. Like, it's obviously terrible in itself. And the devaluing of the sanctity of sex, and we know that's basically been happening, right? But also consider the fact that, again, that is something that doesn't just exist in a bubble either, right? The societal devaluing of sex really does have a trickle outward effect, on the country. Whether you want to, whether that's, the issue of pornography and hookup culture to an extent, right? The sort of addiction, the using of our sexual temptations to addict us to dopamine, addict us to vice, make us, hollowed out kind of shells of people. That's number one. Number two, we definitely know that the combination of all these social movements has been very bad to the marriage rates, right? Marriage is abysmal, right? Divorces high, children low, right? Like, childbirths are low. Like, we obviously know that this is kind of all a product of each other in and of itself, right? These are not independent things. Now you go back and now you recognize that, again, the sexual revolution as a blanket movement, and I would argue in many ways, of all of the liberal revolutions, which I would argue, again, they're very similar to each other, but I would argue that of all of the kind of liberal revolutions that you got out of the 1960s, understanding that, in my opinion, the sexual revolution probably was actually the most destructive one of them all. Well, what, again, is abortion's in itself relationship to the sexual revolution? I would argue, and I've made this case before, that abortion, when you really think about it, is basically necessary for the sexual revolution to manifest itself in our society the way it is today. And that's to say that if you look at something like hookup culture, which is terrible, okay? I go to college, I see it, you guys see it too, right? And we know this is, obviously, like, as Christians, we know what's wrong with this, but even outside of that, like, we see the kind of the actual just destructive nature that this has on people, because, by God's design, right, sex is meant to be something done within marriage for a reason. And one such kind of scientific way we can actually notice that is the fact that we know that chemically, right, women form very strong and kind of permanent emotional bonds to the men that they have sex with, right? And so when you have a girl who's sleeping around, very promiscuous, you tend to notice sort of issues of depression and mental health problems in them. And it's like, why is that? Well, psychologically, right, sex is meant to be a bond, right, between a permanent bond between people. Like, that's the way God designed it. You can actually kind of notice that with the hormonal aspect of it, right? But all that being said, hookup culture specifically, and even, to an extent also, you want to talk about people getting married later, never having kids, whatever, whatever it is. Abortion basically is necessary for all of these things to kind of exist in the way they do. Do people consider that? Well, this is going to hurt us strategically, people, really consider that? Because, and even just think about this for a second, it's not to say that people would stop having sex outside of wedlock if, abortion were banned, because of course it would still happen. But just like, actually I'll get to this in a second, but also consider the fact that it would make a lot of people think twice, in my opinion. I don't even think it's an opinion. I think it's pretty common sense. Yes, promiscuity would still happen. Yes, man's destructive, sinful nature and the cultural norms or whatever would manifest themselves, obviously. But a lot more people would think twice about having sex, would they not? Right? And considering that our goal long term is we want sex to be taken more seriously, I think is kind of the stance, right? Because as Christians and really as conservatives, we're not against sex. We're against sex outside of marriage, right? Because we believe sex is something kind of sacred, right? Sex is something very, actually important, and it's not just like just something you do for pleasure. It's actually something kind of spiritually meaningful. And so, if our goal again is to move back towards sort of that stance of sex, I think actually a kind of place, in a very important place to start, actually is getting people to take sex more seriously. And honestly, it is one step. But I think a lot of people genuinely, even if they don't really realize it, would take the act of sex a lot more seriously if they notice that, hey, I risk being pregnant, and I can't exactly just get out of this. I can't exactly just take a pill or go to Planned Parenthood and get out of this so easily. People would take sex more seriously. Sex would just become something that's kind of seen as, not so much to just be thrown around and sold around and tossed around as much as, it is in today's society, and just gets worse and worse by the day, right? Do we agree on this? Right? Does this make sense? Okay. And, with that being said, in the grand scheme of things, if you want to rebuild social tradition, if you want to rebuild the family, if you want to reverse a lot of the sexual revolution, I think it's important to understand that abortion is a pretty foundational kind of pillar of everything the liberals have built. A lot of what they've built actually is allowed to exist because of easy access to abortion. And quite frankly, you get rid of that, you can start actually marching long-term in the other direction, where people take sex more meaningfully, right? And take it much more seriously. You'll definitely see people, you'll see kind of a more of a culture kind of in favor of childbirth and family creation and promotion. But I would make the argument you actually have to, in the grand scheme of things, in the long run, get rid of abortion for this to be possible. Okay? So, that's what I will say. That is what I will say. So, I think really in the grand scheme of things, we win. Conservatives win. And let me also say this. Because, people will say, well, won't that just piss people off and not... No, it will actually change the culture. This is something... And I've cited a lot of sources in this live stream. Have we noted this? I've cited a lot. I've been, giving credit to a lot of people. But, okay. In our APU video that David narrated, okay, this was a very good video. It's very common for conservatives to talk about how... politics is downstream of culture, right? That's a famous Andrew Breitbart quote. But I think it's also very important to notice that not culture doesn't just impact politics. Politics also impacts culture. And that's to say, because people like to point this out. Well, and especially, again, going back to the whole electability thing. But, most Americans are not on our side in this. Look at the approval ratings, so we can't do this, whatever it is. Again, culture doesn't just impact politics. Politics affects culture as well. Case in point, I would argue, is the original issue of abortion, the original issue of Roe v. Wade. Through the 1960s, obviously, I'm sure we know how the people on campus, the hippies, felt about it, but through a lot of the 1960s, most Americans, for the most part, basically saw abortion as something that was alien, kind of an abomination, right? Probably many saw it as murder, right? But we noticed that when Roe v. Wade was and abortion became legal across America, over time, the public approval for abortion increased. Now, people could try to say this because of this or that, but quite frankly, people fail to take into account that when something becomes policy over time, over the span of years, policies also become social norms, okay? So before Roe v. Wade, abortion was not a social norm in America. After Roe v. Wade, over time, not the day after, but over the span of years, abortion became a social norm, right? It was something that's kind of socially accepted as normal by at least, kind of the majority or the plurality of the American population. And so over time, commonly accepted social norms basically just become it just goes what everyone accepts and what everyone believes in. Obviously, you always have some people that oppose everything, but for the most part, if you want to talk about the majority of society, over time, politics influences culture in that way. The issue of gay marriage, I think, in terms of the Overton window, is also a prime example of it, okay? As late as 2004, this was something that the majority of Americans opposed, and as late as 2016, this is still something that Republicans were campaigning off of, but against, I should say. But in around 2015, 2016, I don't remember the exact year, when the Supreme Court legalizes gay marriage, and it just becomes okay, that's what our society is now. That's the new social norm. Within a few years of it becoming a social norm, look how much the public opinion and the public consensus, simply because it became policy simply because it has become a social norm. Look at how much it is now accepted, and basically everyone accepts it and everyone kind of agrees with it, in our culture. Obviously I don't, but most people do. You look at 5 years removed from every major Republican candidate opposing same-sex marriage. Now you have the RNC Pride Coalition being ran by the Log Cabin Republicans and by Rick Grinnell. That is how fast. And obviously you have every Pride Month, all the corporations are changing their profile pictures. Everything is gay in America. That is how fast politics also can influence culture, not just culture influencing politics. And so that's to say, if we as the pro-lifers, if we as the conservatives want to move back the clock culturally on abortion, stop pretending like we're powerless. Stop pretending like, oh, well, we need to change public opinion first. How are we going to change public opinion? Like anytime in the short run, we're not going to be able to do it because we don't control the media. We don't control Hollywood. We don't control any of the cultural institutions that really move the needle with people. But you know what we do control? Hypothetically, at least, the Supreme Court. You know what we hypothetically can control by winning an election in 2 to 4 years? The government, right? And so obviously, I think it's obviously the case that we really ought to actually, and the best shot we have actually at changing the culture, at changing public opinions on these things, is enacting policy that we know over the grand scheme of things will move back the Overton window. And we see how the left does this, whether that's Roe v. Wade itself, whether that's same-sex marriage. Even look at something like Obamacare, right? Obamacare was like such a big debate, for years. And then now that it's been in place for like a few years, everyone kind of accepts that's what our healthcare system is. And actually, I think a lot of people now support it just because they just support whatever is around them, right? Understanding that this is how society works, understanding this is how culture works, understanding how this is how kind of human nature in general works, probably should be something that we start to pick up on, I would think. But, you'll still get it. No, we got to change the culture first. You can't change the politics through the culture. Got to change the culture first. No. And so that's all to say, in the grand scheme of things, if you want to talk about the restoring of the family, the reversing of the sexual revolution, the actual just direct impact it'll have on the culture in the grand scheme of things, the case becomes clear that actually banning abortion is something that, long run, even if in 2022, sorry, buddy, your Senate red wave map gets a little bit more purple. In the grand scheme of things, it is something that will help, I don't know about the GOP, but it'll help the conservative movement and the conservative people in America. It will. And honestly, I would think that is inherently conservative by nature, right? To think long-term about things. Is it not conservative by nature to think paternalistically about kind of the grand scheme future of America? Isn't it sort of a liberal tendency to fall into impulse control, to fall into short-term tendencies for short-term gratification? And so it's all about more red wave, more 2022, this and that. Isn't the conservative mind by nature supposed to think slower, move slower, and think kind of over wider time periods of time? Is that not kind of the inherently the conservative mindset towards things? Because if we just look at that honestly, we can kind of plot out, oh, maybe 2022, I don't know, we'll lose Pennsylvania or whatever, but over the grand scheme of things, wow, using politics to impact culture probably will help us a lot over the span of decades. But they don't want to do that. They don't want to do that because these people on Twitter are so ridiculously addicted to their short-term kind of dopamine rush that they literally cannot see past that, right? They cannot see past the kind of just this like 1-2 more red wave electoral map style of thinking, kind of just think long-term paternalistically about their country, I think one of the most conservative kind of proverbs there is the whole quote about how, a society grows great when old men plant trees whose shade they know they will not sit in. That's probably inherently one of the most conservative proverbs on earth. Now, obviously, in order to understand that proverb as being conservative, and by proverb, I'm not talking about the Bible, right? I'm talking just about, things that are kind of proverbially said, like kind of moments of wisdom. I think it's a Greek proverb, as a matter of fact. But, obviously you have to define conservatism as being something else other than, freaking small government or whatever. But really understanding what conservatism really is, I think the case is quite obvious. But you're not going to get that. You're not going to get that. And it's very sad. It's very sad that these people can consider themselves conservatives, consider themselves pro-life, consider themselves, people who are on our side, but it's like the practicality of it, buddy. Again, this is not tax cuts, okay? This is not healthcare. Like, this is not a frivolous political issue, you know? And I don't say that just to virtue signal, or I don't say that just to, like, whatever. But, you know, genuinely, that's how I feel, you know? That's how I feel about it. And as Christian conservatives, I think that's how we all feel about it, you know? It's and you know, really, let me say this. I know I say this obviously as someone who, you know, is very gung-ho about using power and really kind of approach, because I believe genuinely that's the stage we are in our nation, where in many aspects we need to basically approach things like no holds barred. You know, we need to basically be willing to use power, attain power, right? We necessarily need to do all of these things, and sometimes use unconventional, non-violent, but unconventional measures to kind of take power and do these things, right? In order to, and I think it's almost our duty to do so because of kind of the state that we are as a country, right? So you guys know, I am not someone who is soft about gaining power or using power or whatever. You guys know I'm actually very aggressive when it comes to this stuff. But with that being said, and I say this as someone who you guys know is no. Okay, my bad. That one was actually my fault. I unplugged myself here. So that one was my fault. Okay, you can actually say Vince Dow did that. All right, that was not YouTube. That was not the internet. That was all me. That was all me. That was not the wisest thing I've ever done. Okay, I was getting passionate here. All right, I was getting passionate here. All right, so I did do that. I will admit to that. I that was all me. Okay, as I was saying again, as someone who is not coy about taking power or using power, or, you know, really kind of doing what needs to be done to save our country, this whole, again, as someone who's aggressive about that, this whole logic of we can't stop murder because my electability, right? That kind of power hungry logic, like to the extent to which you're getting that power, because, you know, I'm all about gaining power. I'm all about using power. It has always been to gain power to enact our principles, because that's the point of it. That's the point of it, right? There's no point, as I said earlier, there's no point to gaining power if you're not going to use power. Okay. So but with that being said, right, this concept, this willingness to really sacrifice really basic moral principles, such as the sanctity of human life, for the attainment, for the pursuit of political power, I mean, quite frankly, that is something that is going to lead you to hell, and that's something that's going to lead this nation to hell along with you. I mean, it is. It is. You know, that's the point to which I'm like, that really actually does concern me. And to be honest, I think in many cases it can become a right-wing tendency, right? Especially like an authoritarian right-wing tendency to sacrifice like actual moral principle for the attainment of political power, right? Obviously. Actually, give me a second here. I'm gonna reconnect my Wi-Fi. Let's see if this. Okay. Should be better now. Hopefully we are. Actually, I'll just refresh it. I'll be right back. All right. We should be fine now. We should be fine now. We have returned. We have returned. We're so back. We're so back. They tried to stop us. The globalists, the Satanists, they tried to stop this stream. It's not going to happen. But anyways, that does concern me, right? It does concern me. Because at what point does I mean, and lust for power is not good. Okay, it's not. And lust for anything is not good. Lust for anything is going to lead you to hell. But I think in many ways, who like putting people in power like that is, in the grand scheme of things, inevitably going to lead the nation to hell anyway, right? And you're going to get results out of leaders like that, out of politicians like that, out of whoever like that, CEOs, whoever, that in the grand scheme of things are not going to be good, right? And so I want aggressive leadership, I do. And I think that we ought to do like basically everything in our power to be serious about the political reclamation of America, obviously. But, you know, leading people to hell in the process, that's not my goal here. That shouldn't be your goal here either. And I mean, for me, the reason why I'm so adamant about reclaiming power and making sure we're able to reclaim power is precisely because I want to see our goals enacted. I want to see our moral principles enacted. If we sacrifice those moral principles to do it, then there's no point to doing it. There's no point to winning in 2022. There's no point to reclaiming the incident. There's no point to doing anything we want to do if something as basic of a goal of ours, like, you know, stopping the murder of human life, something as basic as that, if we're going to sacrifice that, then I'm not on this train. Then I'm not with you. Okay, I'm not going along with you. I don't know what movement you're a part of, but it's not my movement. I'm not on your train. I'm not doing that, right? I'm not doing that. Because moral principle, and I mean, I'm honestly speaking from the heart, ultimately my salvation is way more important than, you know, your lust for your political party's power. I mean, honestly, it is. And that's the way we ought to see it. So that's all to say. The fact that I'm genuinely seeing, you know, people in our movement, some Christian, some not Christian, quote unquote, some not, but regardless, it's concerning nonetheless, that are basically espousing that logic. I mean, that's extremely concerning. It is. Whether it's abortion will hurt us in 2022, this is another one you might see. Abortion is actually based. Abortion is actually good because it helps us demographically. In terms of, like... But, of course, they will, again, profess that Christ is king, right? They will chant that, and then they will go on to say that... By the way, I'm not talking about, like, all of any one movement, because I think this is just something that's scattered throughout. But you'll see this. You'll see people who say this, right? Christ is king, I'm based, but, you know, abortion is actually good because it helps us with demographics. Again, a carnal lust for power that's going to lead you to hell, and in the grand scheme of things, I don't care, ultimately is going to lead America to hell too. And I don't support that. And that actually concerns me. I mean, it does. It genuinely does concern me, you know. And it's something that needs to be checked, you know. Because really, I would also say, how are you really all that different from, like, the neocons in power, ultimately? Because, obviously, the Republican Party of today is exactly that party. The Republican Party of today is a party that's basically willing to sacrifice and cave anything conservative for a perceived gain in electoral power. How are you really that different from that? I mean, how are you, you know? So, you know. You have people, yeah, exactly. You have people like DK brings up. You have people who are like, abort the left, this and that. Really? Yeah. That's part of why I think that's, you know, really that's part of the political utility, almost. I think the political importance of, you know, ensuring that our movement is a Christian movement. And I know lately, I bet you a lot of the secular viewers don't like my content as much anymore, because I bring it up a lot more now, right? But it is stuff like that, because it's like, without, you know, again, and let me also say, I'm actually going to make a video of this probably on Friday, but, you know, the Bible is clear about abortion. Let me say that. Let me say that to Christians. This is mainly like liberal Christians, like woke Christians who try to, you know, say that, well, you know, actually, I'm a pro-choice Christian. Actually, the Bible doesn't. No, the Bible is very clear at multiple stages. We are made in God's image, number one. Number two, God knows us from the moment we are formed in the womb. He forms us in the womb. And number three, from Exodus, we also know that it, in God's eyes, is murder, because this is told to the ancient Israelites in Exodus. It is murder to kill a baby that is within the womb, right? I think it's Exodus 21, as a matter of fact, prescribes the same exact penalty for murder, which in Exodus is the death penalty, prescribes to the ancient Israelites, right? This is to be the law of ancient Israel. Prescribes the exact same penalty for murder as when it comes to killing an unborn baby in the womb, which suggests what? That baby is alive, right? That is a human life, and it has the same moral value as same exact moral value as, you know, a born human being, right? It's not a clump of cells. Let me just say that, and that's specifically because like pro-choice Christians are a pretty big thing in America. You know, we're gonna see. So I'll probably do. Actually, I might make a video about that, just like particularly to tailor to that audience, debunking that audience. But that is to say, right? That is to say that without, let me just say, I noticed that, you know, without a moral grounding, and it's not to say that like every atheist, paleo-conservative, or nationalist or whatever is bound to become like that. Obviously not. But there are many such cases in which I notice, you know, that again, that kind of carnal lust for power that is not checked by God, right? It's not checked by loyalty to Jesus Christ, that, you know, will descend ultimately into stuff like that, into like, again, like someone brought up in the chat, abort the left, or, you know, abortion is based because it helps us demographically, or, you know, it's like it'll hurt us in the midterms, right? I think Christ is the ultimate check and balance on one's power, right? Because it is, even just practically speaking, it is kind of a moral way to live. It is a moral code to abide by that we must remind ourselves is more important than, you know, worldly politics or partisan politics or whatever, right? And I think that partially is why restoring kind of religiosity in America is actually important, because, you know, without it, and like, I know Lockean liberalism tries to suggest that all people are good people. We talked about some, you know, all people are good people, and, you know, humanism and whatnot. Like, you know what? Just leave human nature to its own devices. We're all good. We're all rational. I believe in the human spirit. I believe in humanity. It's a bunch of nonsense, you know. But as much as people try to say that, no, you leave people without loyalty to God, and they will become easily well, they already are, but they will descend even further into just simply being children of wrath, and that's the way it's going to end up, right? And so an atheist population is basically always going to end up that way, you know. I don't care about the Enlightenment or, you know, Lockean liberalism, whatever. Like, no, it's all a bunch of nonsense. That is what human nature is predisposed to. That's what you're going to get from a godless people every single time, and that's part of why I argue that, you know, without the restoration of Christianity en masse, and authentic Christianity, right? Not just like, you know, New Age, you know, youth Christianity, or, you know, the stuff, a lot of the stuff you see today, right? I think that's precisely why it actually is so important from like a practical political standpoint, that this nation have faith, the people of this nation have faith in something that is greater than simply their immediate dopamine, their immediate gratification, or whatever is, in this sense, like immediately politically or personally just pragmatic or like easy for them, right? So I think it's important. But anyways, with that being said, that wraps up the discussion on abortion. That took about an hour, so I'll do like 30 minutes or so of Q&A. We'll talk, we'll chat. I'll reach out to see what you guys thought of all of this. But yeah, send in your chats, send in your super chats. Let's have fun. Let's have an epic time. And yeah, so there we go. Will says Vince Dow on his way to copy John Lewis takes. So true, so true. Although zero takes here were stolen from him. So we've actually not stolen his takes for quite a while now, because I actually stopped watching his content so that I would stop doing it, because I subconsciously only just say what I think in my mind. So without the influence of his takes, it is impossible for me to reiterate his take. Sergeant says, why no collabs? Which I have collabed with John Doyle. Have you not seen the vlog? Have you not seen the Maryland vlog? that was content. I don't know what I don't know what you want. What do you want? What do you want? Let's do a full stream together or something. I don't know. Maybe at some point, but we do have collabs with John Doyle. It's go back to like the channel in May, the vlog, very popular vlog. A lot of the community actually found me through there. That was fun. Now, sadly, we did not get the infamous pancake incident on camera. I really should have filmed that, but I got my revenge for that. By the way, it was very sweet revenge. But John, he did a little bit of trolling in this restaurant. It was the infamous pancake incident. I'm not sure how many people actually know what it is, but that did happen. So, Video Maker says one of the most base streamed ever. We love to see it. We love to see it. It was a much different stream tonight, was it not? All right. It wasn't so much like, honestly, I will say I feel like a lot of it wasn't so much of a facts and logic stream as much as usual. Like I don't know. A lot of it was interwoven with like what's in the heart, not just what's in the mind, you know. Which obviously you can't say about every political issue because a lot of it's just like debating about frivolous things. But you know, tonight it had to come from the heart because you know there was no other really way to put it. So. Kyle says, Vince, what book of the Bible are you currently reading and what are you learning from it? I honestly jump around. Like every day, it kind of just, I jump around whatever. I've been reading Job, though. That's the book I've been reading a little bit recently. As I did at the end of the stream the other night, which I did too. It was actually an elaborate scheme to admit to something that was quite elaborate. But that's kind of the book I've mainly been studying the last few days is Job. What am I learning from it? I think it's probably one of, I mean, I haven't read them all, but I would say it's probably one of arguably the most important books of the Bible because, you know, I think faith in God and kind of grace for God, I wouldn't say it's always easy, but it's probably easier during times of, you know, prosperity and whatnot, right? You know, you're doing well in life. Thank God for your blessings, right? I think it's when people fall into kind of states of struggle, states of despair, that you know it genuinely does become a lot harder to you know maintain your trust in God and whatnot. And I like the way Job, the story right of Job, really hits home at that, right? So I do like that. I like the book of Job a lot. So, GB says I'm in Matthew. Yeah, I was reading that like a week ago, 2 weeks ago. So, Screw Off Capitalist says be like Job, virtually loses everything and remains loyal to God. No, and you know what else I will say about it is that it's a reminder that. I mean, Job is actually an Old Testament book, but it's a reminder that having a relationship with God, and you know, modern context for Christians, okay, so being a Christian is not and never was about material wealth, right? Material wealth, material health, or material prosperity, right? I think that's something that's very important to note. Because you will have a lot of preachers, especially a lot of New Age preachers, come along and tell you that, you know, God will bless your life. God will, you know, get you wealth and whatnot. I mean, it's possible that that's how God, you know, chooses to work with you in your life. But you're far from guaranteed that. You're not guaranteed that by being a Christian. You're guaranteed basically nothing on this earth, right? You're guaranteed a lot in the next life. But you're guaranteed nothing on this earth, you know, by following Christ. And as a matter of fact, you know, we are warned that very often we will be hated, we will be persecuted, right? And you know, many of the strongest Christians will be given the toughest battles, right? That's obviously a meme that everyone knows, but still, right? So, but that's all to say, we're not guaranteed anything. We're not guaranteed in this life, right? We're not guaranteed wealth. We're not guaranteed prosperity, right? And I think that a lot of people seem to think that we are, right? People will pray to God God, please help me make a lot of money, and then when they don't, they're angry at God or whatever. And they're taught by these prosperity preachers, whether it's Joel Osteen or nut jobs like Kenneth Copeland or whatever, right? They're kind of taught by these people that he's gonna bless your life. No, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. You're not guaranteed that. Now again, maybe that's how God chooses to bless you, but you're far from guaranteed for those things. You're not guaranteed that for being a Christian. The original Christians were ruthlessly persecuted and killed, most of them, right, for following Christ, right? And most of them were extremely poor as well. I mean, we know Jesus himself. Did he come on earth to be a noble? Did he live in royalty? No. He came and lived in basically poverty his entire life on earth, right? He was a carpenter, which is not, even back then was not like exactly a very sought after job, right? And so it's all to say, you're not guaranteed that material prosperity, that material wealth, that material whatever it is. But you obviously will see a lot of people tell you that you are, right? And these prosperity preachers are false teachers. Almost universally, they all are. I mean, let's be honest. I haven't seen one that you can look at this person and say, nah, you're not really. No, they're all false teachers. They are. And quite frankly, I would also argue they exploit but also I would argue that the people who follow them equally have something wrong with them, because you look at someone like Kenneth Copeland, right? The guy who is all about like, money, come to me now, right? That clip. Obviously, yeah, his poor followers, they're being led astray by false teaching. But also, if you can't genuinely look at that and see that the guy's insane, like the guy's likely, probably, actually like physically possessed, definitely insane. I would argue there's also something wrong with you. And that's to say that I think that if the type of teaching that says, hey, you're going to be given a lot of money or whatever, right? That type of teaching, that means inside, if that type of teaching appeals to you, which it does not appeal to any like authentic Christian, if that type of teaching actually appeals to you, then I think you and yourself have a problem. You have a lust for wealth, a lust for prosperity, whatever it is in your heart, that is driving you to find that teaching appealing, right? Because I think a lot of authentic Christians can really see the fraud there. But if you're consumed by the same lust for power or wealth or whatever that these prosperity preachers are, then I think it's easy to see how you can so easily be led astray by them. And so that's what I will say. That's fair. In theory, televangelism could be good, but pretty much all of them do it for personal gain. I mean, I don't know enough about all the televangelists, right? I'm sure there's a lot of good ones out there, but I think on mass, a lot of them are doing it for material gain, prosperity, their own wealth, whatever, and God will judge them. God will judge Kenneth Copeland, Joel Osteen, all of them, but in the meantime, I think it's obviously our job to. Are you ever going to reach someone like that? No, but their followers, I think definitely it's our job to try to pull people away from them as much as possible, right? So, American, yeah, see, he knows. Money, come to me now. Swarp Storm Tracking says, hey, Vince, I talked to my mom about abortion and she's mostly pro-life. Except for rape, how can I change her mind on that? Sometimes you won't be able to do it. I'll tell you that from experience. But, ultimately, at least try to show them the logic here. It's like, you say it's a life in the womb. Okay, well, why not in the case of rape? It's still life, right? It's still taking a life, even if that life, came about by circumstances that are not the fault and are not the consequence of the mother's intentional actions. It's still a life, and what happened in rape doesn't justify, obviously, the taking of another life, or the taking of a life, another act of evil, right? So, That's what you have to say. Now, I will say from experience, they don't always buy it sometimes, but it's rape, you know. But if you're really being logical and you're really honest to admit that's a life, then it's still a life. A life is a life. It doesn't matter how it came about. It doesn't matter if it came about by incest. You know, it's still a life, and it deserves to be granted a chance at life, just like anything. Just like anything else. So. Gigantic Sumo Guy says Pat Buchanan is greater than Trump. I agree with that. Now, obviously, I think it's fair to say Trump, in the long grand scheme of things, is more impactful, right? He kind of Buchanan started the long march. Trump is going to be the person to really like get it in the door, right? But ideologically speaking, yeah, Buchanan is definitely, I think miles ahead of Trump. Buchanan is kind of the origin of all of the good aspects of Trump, right? So. Dr. Oz, now running for Senate, announced that he is a Pat Buchanan Republican. Did he really say that? I don't know. I've been hearing a lot of people who don't like him and don't trust him. I don't know enough about him. I know he's had kind of a shady record, right, of being a moderate or whatever, or being a Muslim or whatever people are saying about him. I've not heard him say that. If he did say that, then that's interesting, because that's a kind of a bold thing. That's kind of an out there thing to say as a Republican candidate. So that's interesting to take a look at. I don't know. I mean, I honestly, at this rate, he probably will win the nomination. So hopefully he's not a fraud, but I don't know. We'll see. I will say a little bit to play devil's advocate about, his record in the past. He was someone who had his own show and kind of in Hollywood, so I think it's definitely fair to say he may have tried to conceal his views a little bit or change his views a little bit. Again, I'm just playing devil's advocate. I'm not saying he's not a grifter or whatever. Something to consider. I don't know. I mean, I don't really trust the guy either, but we'll see. I don't know. We'll see. GB says, I'm asking for Buchanan books for Christmas. I started finally buying physical books. For a while I was more of a fan of ebooks and audiobooks, but I don't know. Somehow reading the Bible physically made me realize finally that like it's actually better to read physical books. And so I actually started buying physical books, which I've been taking a look at. Like, of course, now that I have a physical bookshelf, like a king, I think we all know this book. I think we basically all know the arguments of this book, but it's nice to finally have a physical one, right? And not just an iTunes ebook or whatever. It's nice to have it physically. It's a cool prop, actually. It'd be cool to like sit on the desk, right? But yeah. So, VinceDao said, if you wrote a book, what would it be about? I don't know. I'd have to figure out. I mean, I'd probably want to do some type of like manifesto of like, what conservatism is or should be perceived as. But, I don't know. I feel like a lot of people have done that, right? Maybe it's necessary to do one. I don't know. That's probably the book I would want to write. Is it the book that I would end up writing if I ever do write a book? I don't know. The book I end up writing is probably whatever, the publicist is like, you should write a book about this. And I'll be like, oh, fine. And make like $800,000. That's a joke. I don't know. We'll see. The video maker says, what are your full thoughts on Dr. Oz and him? I don't have full thoughts. I don't know. I kind of need to see more from him. I mean, we'll see. I don't know. I don't really fully trust the guy either, but I don't know who is going to be our guy. I don't know. I don't really fully trust any Republican, so it's hard to say it's exclusively a Dr. Oz thing. We'll have to see what we see from him. I don't know. It's like, do you fully trust Herschel Walker? Do you fully trust... honestly, I'm not sure. We'll see, right? Screw Off Capitalist says the VinceDao Nationalist Manifesto. True. So true. Jose Rodriguez says it would be... Oh, yeah. No, that's what I should do. I should copy after Knowles. I'll do Reasons to Oppose VinceDao Nationalism, a Comprehensive Guide. It'll be an empty book. And then the next book, I don't know. His book is called Speechless, which is unironically, I'm actually going to show for his book. It's unironically a good book. It makes arguments that we've made on this channel, obviously, before, but considering the audience there and considering kind of the tactical brilliance of the audience and the kind of the way the book is framed and supposed to appeal to, it's actually quite brilliant, the way in which it's done. So it's a good book. But with that being said, his is called Speechless. I don't know what would mine be called. Baseless, red-pilledless. I could write a book like that. Gigantic Sumo Guy says he's probably the best person in... Yeah. Definitely. American Creationist says creation or evolution. See, here's the thing. I definitely think there is kind of a case to be made where you could kind of rationalize how evolution and creationism are like kind of both compatible in a way, sort of. But honestly, I really am subscribing more to just like pure creationism, you know? Because it's like, I feel like in terms of, I don't know, I feel like in terms of my salvation, it's less risky to just kind of take the word at its word instead of try to, you know, craft all the metaphors in there. And I will say, you know, I also find it quite epic to you know, like when you just say you don't believe in evolution, the way that people react to you is hilarious, and I live for it. It's quite good. So I'm creation. I'm probably team creation. Like, screw the lab coats, honestly. You know, screw the theory on naturals. No, whatever. You know. And like I said, I think I've tried to like rationalize before. Well, you know, technically, you know, the kind of at least the basic concept of evolution, maybe not the specifics of every single gene tree or whatever, but you know, the basic concept, the basic premise of evolution and the basic premise of creationism is not really totally incompatible, right? Because, well, we know that God made man last, and technically we evolved last too, so you could say the days are metaphorical. Maybe. But honestly, I mean, who the heck cares? Like, I think it's a lot more simple to just take it at its word, you know? And when that day comes, is God really going to judge me for actually just believing what the Bible says? Or is he more likely to, you know, not really be happy that I tried to, like, even if it's maybe that actually is true, but I think there's a greater chance that he'd be more likely to kind of say, why exactly were you questioning or trying to fit my word with like this whatever, you know? Really, in my opinion, I feel like I'm safer off just believing in creation. I feel like you are too. So the lab coats can seethe all they want, you know, but I seek first the kingdom of heaven, not the kingdom of gay science, okay? So deal with it. Seethe harder. I don't, you know, deal with it, but, you know. Concept idea, you should debate someone like Miles Poland on the topic of Christian evolution. I don't know who that is. And if he is a Christian who believes in evolution, I mean, again, I can understand the viewpoint. You know, I don't really have a super strong, really, like, I understand why people would, I used to kind of subscribe to that too. But it's, and you know, I don't think I have enough like kind of in the tank to really argue it, other than my honest stance on it. My honest stance on it is like, you know, it could be either, it could be total creation or like Christian evolution. I just feel safer. I just feel more comfortable in believing in creation and in believing in the way it's written. And if it is metaphorical or whatever, I feel like still God wouldn't be like, you know, on the day of judgment, wouldn't be like, well, you should have known I was talking about metaphorical. Like, is he really gonna, is he really gonna like get mad at me for having too much faith in the word itself? I don't think so. I don't know. I don't think so. I just feel like I'm safer off that way. So, you know. Say atheists when presents don't evolve under the science miscreation. It's so true. It's so true. You saw the actually the new governor of New York, not Cuomo, but you know the new lady in power. She actually referred to them as a holiday tree. I don't know if you guys saw that. He said, "Oh, we got the holiday tree up for this year." That was a time. Okay, that was quite a time. Screw Off Capitalist says, what's the most unpopular take you have in the conservative movement? I don't know. It really depends which side of the conservative movement, because I have takes that are probably unpopular to all sides, right? It's like, you know, if you're talking about the conservative mainstream, I don't know, probably my take on things like immigration or demographics, I guess. If you're talking about like the dissidents, I don't know. I mean, I think here I think sometimes their approach to issues like women and gender roles is unbiblical, right? Because obviously there's probably the hottest take to this audience, and that's not, again, I am no feminist. I'm not definitely like but I'm approaching this from a biblical viewpoint, and there are two ends, right? Don't get me wrong. I think it's Timothy. That, you know, discusses kind of the relationship between husband and wife, and it's made pretty clear. It's women, wives, submit to your husbands. Husbands, love and respect your wives. But the reason why I think, and people will be like, why is that controversial? Well, I think the issue that I sometimes see, right, is that I feel like, obviously, this whole side of the movement fully agrees with the submit to your husband's part, which that's how it's supposed to be. But forget the love and respect your wife part, right? This whole like, oh, I'm gonna abuse my wife because that's base. I don't know if it's irony or not. Sometimes it's genuinely not. But that kind of approach to thing, right? That kind of approach, yeah. I will say sometimes the whole sexism line that, you know, it becomes unbiblical. And I'm not saying it's true of everyone. I'm just saying sometimes the whole hating woman thing starts to become unbiblical. And you can call me cucked, you can call me a simp or whatever, but you are called to, in the Bible, right? A husband is supposed to love his wife as his own flesh, right? As his own flesh. Is that telling you, you know, to go around hating women and owning your wife? Or no, you're literally supposed to love your wife as your own flesh, and that we're told biblically that's the point of marriage. I think most people agree with that, but I will say sometimes, you know, we definitely see the natural urge and the correct urge to, you know, the issue with gender roles, which I believe in, is that there's a two-way street, right? If Zoomer conservative right-wing men want women to have a certain role in society, they also have to take on, as men, a certain role in society. And I think very often they don't want to do that, right? You want your trad wife who's literally never been on the internet ever and like wears flower dresses all the time. Okay. But you don't really act like the man who, hypothetically at least, that type of woman would be able to marry, right? So that's there you go. That's probably something that's somewhat unpopular with our side of the movement. On the other side of the movement, I think it's pretty obvious what's unpopular, right? Most of my opinions, but you know, on this side, I will say that's probably that becomes an issue, right? That becomes an issue. Jose Rodriguez, and it's so true. Some of these people want a trad wife without being trad husband. Exactly. Also, one thing I will say, okay, hold on, Jose, I'll get to your question in a second, your super chat in a second. Maybe another take. And by the way, I'm not going to pretend like I'm innocent of this, because I do it all the time, and I'm like trying to stop, and sometimes, like, you may have heard me actually correct myself once on stream when I was about to do it. But for the most part, cussing and cursing is not a good thing, okay? I don't know that it's, because I've kind of been trying to study this a little bit. I don't know if like explicitly the Bible tells you what words you can and can't use, but the kind of the sentiment of, you know, using your words to glorify the Lord, that is, and again, that's not, I think I cussed once on this stream. I kind of did it for a specific purpose, right? But let me just say, I'm trying to watch my mouth more, okay? because it is actually not good. Okay, it's actually not good to curse. So I'm trying. I'm trying. But that's another thing to say. Constant cursing, I don't think is something that's good to come out of a concern. And I'm not saying being judgmental of that. Like I cursed a lot. I still do. I'm trying to cut down on it my vocabulary, but it is something to take into account. Okay, it's generally not good, right? Now, the Apostle Paul often used very strong language to, describe certain things and when it mattered, right? But it's also that's precisely what it's about. It's about the use of your language, right? You need to use language that is meaningful and that you're kind of willing to defend, right? So, anyways, getting to this question here, thoughts on the various wings of the dissident right? America First, White Nat, Neo-Reaction, Neo-Fascist, etc. I think we all need to stop the infighting personally and start cooperating / compromising. Well, the dissident right, I think, will never get along with itself because by nature, the dissident right it means they're dissident. So I mean, yeah, they didn't get along with the mainstream, but to a large extent, they're not going to be able to, in many ways, get along with each other either, right? Because I mean, you want to talk about the Wignats, for example. I mean, okay, a big difference between the Wignats and America First is that America First is, largely Christian, and the Wignats are largely atheist and Nordic pagans. And it's how are you going? And most Wignats also are post-national. America First, inherently is nationalist. So you're never really going to kind of get along. How, you know what I mean? So I mean, what I will say is that to a large extent, it is not politically effective or productive to fight with your own right flank, right? It's just is no point to it. Most of the dissident right movements, not all of them, but a lot of the ones you mentioned are too irrelevant to even give time of day to anyway. And to the ones that are not, I don't think it's productive to constantly infight with the your right flank or whatever, unless it's utterly necessary. So that's what I will say about it. I think to a large degree, as conservatives, we ought to start punching a lot more left than we do right, for the sake of the Overton window, right? And if you want to move the Overton window to the right, your attack needs to be on the left, not on the right, right? So that's what I would say about it. And that's basically all. That's basically all I have to say about it. Hosea White says, as someone who knows a lot of Wignats, the pagan / atheist thing is beginning to fall apart while the Christian wing is growing. Well, I hope that's the case, because I think fundamentally a lot of their ideology is just anti-Christian, right? So I think it naturally has to come with a lot of kind of change in philosophy and worldview too, but I think that's inevitable because you look at most Wignats, it's just they're I mean they're such losers that I think a lot of the people around them realize that they're losers and look to something more, I guess, be something that's just not a total loser. I don't know. I don't really interact a lot with that sphere of things. I don't think it's productive, but that's my theory on that, right? Video Maker says Doomers and Wignats should be purged from this movement. Well, Wignats are totally irrelevant. I mean, honestly, they beef with the Groypers, but that's basically they're politically irrelevant. They're not a relevant political force at all. With that being said, I think Doomers are probably the bigger problem, right? The Doomers. It's not actually that's probably that's a video I want to make at some point, probably soon. It's 3 to 5 reasons why conservatives need to or can or at least reasons they have to be optimistic about the future and kind of try to calm down a little bit of the constant dooming we often see. And I'm not going to spoil the video, but the final reason why you should not be a doomer, the final reason why you should be eternally white-pilled, you'll see. It's quite a good reason, but I'm going to save that for the video. So, all right, more questions. Send them in here. Send in the questions, boys. Easy Legendary says, Vince, what are your actual thoughts on the 19th Amendment? I don't know. What do you think my actual thoughts on the 19th Amendment are? Let's see. Watch mathematical challenges to Darwin's theory of evolution on YouTube by the Hoover Institution. I've never watched that. Honestly, dude, let me be honest. I'm not that interested in the question of evolution. Like, it's like, I'll just believe what the Bible says about it. I mean, what else? I don't know. I don't know. Who is it? Why is it that I mean, I'm not a scientist. It's not really that relevant to me. I don't really bother to debate about it. It's just like, it's whatever, you know? I don't personally like think I mean, obviously if you totally deny any semblance of creation, yeah. But I think that I think for the most part the kind of nuance where you stand on it is not really a big salvation issue, right? I don't think it's like, yeah, I mean, you know, if you kind of I think the way you kind of discern to try to like interpret, I mean, I don't think it's really the biggest salvation issue. I don't know. But you know, I prefer to err on the side of caution. I prefer to err on the safe side. So, you know, if that means taking Genesis at its word, then I'll take Genesis at its word. You know, it's like it's not that big of a it's not like, oh no, like fine, you know. That's fine with me. So American Creationist says, I've never met a wingnut in real life, and I live in rural North Florida. Yeah, I mean, skinheads are a real thing. But the internet wingnuts, yeah, they're not gonna... And there's not really that many in North Florida. I will say there's one place in Louisiana where, yeah. But for the most part, they're not really a real thing. Jose said, did your boss approve the Russian video yet? No. I keep taking it back to my supervisor, and he keeps saying it's not good enough. So we're continuously trying to perfect it until it can eventually be posted. So what about the Putin video? I'm telling you, they're not pleased with it. Okay, that they keep demanding that it is better. So I don't know. It's gonna have to wait. Someone write a book on Vince Dow lore. It's true. Thoughts on Gastonism? I endorse neo-Gastonism. I was on the live when that was kind of invented, so I know exactly what that is. Takashi, I appreciate the effort, but you are spamming, so could you please slow down with that? I appreciate the sentiment, though. I agree with the sentiment, but you know, spam is spam. So you are distracting the live chat. All right. Hosea says, I mean, we could debate how Christian the beliefs of the Wignats really are, but one of their biggest podcasts is called the Godcast, so that should count. Again, I don't know. I really don't know that much about them, but all I know is that they are commonly associated with being atheists and paganists, which, you know, makes sense, right? They basically think Christianity is like a Jewish psyop that was... I've heard this, okay? They think Christianity is like a Jewish psyop that was imposed on the white people of Western Europe. That's what they believe. So... I must take another sip of coffee for dramatic effect. Curious. Okay. Thoughts on the Big Nick Show? We love the Big Nick Show. Let's see. hold on. Wait. Let me see this. I took the best stickers. I'm not gonna say what this. I'm not gonna say what this is. I'm not gonna say what it is. You can speculate. I'm actually gonna put these away. I'm leaving them suspiciously. They are stickers. I'm not gonna say what they are stickers of, but they are sitting on my desk, and it keeps cracking me up that they are here. I don't know what are the stickers. I don't know. I don't know what the stickers are. What could they be? What could they be? I don't know. I don't know what they are. So, DK says, I'm surprised the Biden administration hasn't targeted... Well, they have. They have targeted him. What do you think the no-fly list is? What do you think the FBI seizing all of his assets and whatnot is? I mean, they've totally targeted him. I don't know if, like, Biden personally has been like, but the Biden administration, you're talking about executive departments and stuff, and they've totally done that. DOJ, FBI, the Homeland Security, like, they all know about him. And they've all gone after him. So I think the Biden administration definitely has targeted him, right? So Video Maker says, what are your thoughts on some people on the right not liking Dr. Oz because he is Muslim? I find that stance so dumb because he has other issues. Okay, the one thing I will say, it is almost hard to judge on this because 90% of the Republicans who call themselves Christians believe like they're just whatever, like they're not really authentic in the faith. And from what I've heard, Oz isn't really that authentic of a Muslim either. That's just kind of where he came out of. Now, with that being said, I definitely do understand why people are, skeptical in a Christian nation of, running candidates who are explicitly not Christian because, at least most political, it does say something about the abandonment of the mainstream faith in America that, even the non-believers who at least run for the Republican Party for the most part have to at least say that they're Christian, right? I mean, maybe some parts of New York, they run as Orthodox Jews or, maybe some parts of South Florida, same thing, right? But like for the most part, most places in America, you have to at least say you're some type of Christian in order to be viable for political office, at least as a Republican. And I do think that's a good thing because it's a Christian nation. At least we want it to be. And so I do think there's something to be said about, is this really a good thing for office? Would that be? Do I think it's entirely in itself a disqualifying thing? Not necessarily, but I think it's something that is definitely like, it needs to be thought about, right? What's up with this, So I do understand the concern. Obviously not the only issue with him. And, he's into another bunch of like weird psychic necromancy stuff or whatever. So I don't know. But I understand. I don't think it's a totally invalid talking point in and of itself to say, the Christian nation, the Christian Conservative Party now is just running outspoken, transparent Muslims. It's like, I definitely think that should be something that people ask, like, is this really the right optics for the party? Is this where the country should be going? But, I don't know. Luis says, why do Muslims team up with progressive parties? They are nothing alike. Well, I think it's because, in many ways, the main enemy of... You see, I think it's a mutual relationship. In many ways, progressives know not what they were doing. They know not what they were doing. Because, yeah, in mainstream Islam, and Muslims actually agree with us on a lot of social issues. Not all of them, but a lot of them, right? But I think what's more important to the Muslim world and what's more important to progressives is the destruction of the historical West, is the destruction of the Christian West, and is the destruction of Christianity. And so, considering we are kind of the Christian side, we are the traditionally Western side, I think progressives and the Muslim world kind of see a common enemy in that, right? And that's kind of why they both collectively agree that we are the enemy, right? That the traditional Christian West is what they're mutually trying to destroy, now for different reasons, but still trying to destroy nonetheless. And so I think that's where the alliance comes from, right? And let me say, I don't think that even though hold on, I gotta change my camera battery. Even though we may agree on things like abortion or sexuality or whatever, I don't think you're really, frankly, you're never gonna see an alliance here. And I think a big reason why, at least the top level kind of liberal establishment in the West is so keen on allowing Islam. I mean, do you really think they're that stupid? Do you think they're that naive? No. I think a big reason why they're allowing such large populations of Islamic peoples to, immigrate here, not just here, but Europe, immigrate to the West is precisely because they know what Muslims have been doing to Christians for thousands of years. They know that. They know that we do not get along, right? And so if their goal is to destabilize the West, to destabilize the historically Christian societies, in the name of, installing a post-liberal kind of egalitarian order or whatever, right? I think the case is made. I think the alliance to them is clear that if we want to, upend tradition, the traditional society, if we want to destabilize that, then I think Islam is kind of our ally in that, right? Because the Muslims want us gone too, just for a different reason. En masse, obviously we have some Muslims that are on actually Republicans or whatever, like Dr. Oz, but this is the attitude that permeates most of the Islamic world, right? And so they understand that if you allow those populations in en masse, right, they kind of understand what's going to happen, right, as a result of that. So chat was so focused on debating religion that they forgot to spam 12-1. So true. So true. I think probably soon, starting next year or something, as I become more versed, this could double. We could double as a conservative channel and a religious channel. Because I let me say, I feel like that's probably the one thing in the market that is missing, right? I don't know how exceptionally unique my commentary is in terms of other stuff and how exceptionally unique my content is. And obviously, it's like, as a creator, you want to be known for something unique. And I feel like that's the one thing that is kind of is from a. I mean, I'm sure it's not like all the other great commentators or whatever are totally coy about it, but to a large extent, it's like I feel like a lot of them out there just it's you either get a politics channel or religion or a religion channel. We could make content on both, and that would make me unique. I'd have something to offer that a lot of people don't have to offer. So. Ash Ketchum says, aren't conservative and religious the same? You know what I mean. You know what I mean. I'm talking about like actual studies of scripture and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? Mr. Conservative says, stop the brother wars. Christians have to be united to defeat atheism and Islam. And let me say, all other false religions out there, I agree. I do agree with that. So, American Crusade says, I comment and cite scriptures while going over cultural and political issues. Yeah. See, I know that technically it's like there's two sides to this. And let me say, I think it just matters because it's our duty to spread the gospel. So it's a case to be made. So, but on one hand, people, a lot of especially non-believers will get mad when you bring religion into your political discussions because they feel like they're alienated or whatever. And so in a way it might alienate some of the audience. But I feel like at the same time, you're almost consolidating something that is stronger because at the same time, those who are believers will kind of come to you and kind of pay more close attention to your content specifically because you are the guy who is bringing, scripture into discussions of politics. So, I know a lot of people will be like, stop. I don't want to hear about your religion. I want to hear about your politics, not your religion. This is a political channel. At the same time, I think there are a lot of people out there yearning for people who bring up religion in politics a lot more. So you can almost combine them, right? You can almost combine the niches, and it'll be good. Vince Dow says you should invite Mansoor Z on a stream. It's gonna happen at some point. The APU will be doing like live streams soon. It'll be a lot of fun. It'll be a lot of fun. D-Clan says, you didn't alienate me by bringing in scripture. You brought me closer to God and into the Christian. Let's go. Let's go. White pilled. We love to see that. We love to see that. We love to see that. And let me say, I think with everything going on in our country, the time has never been better or more necessary, I should say, to kind of put your ultimate faith in something that's greater than America, right? We love America, obviously. We're very loyal to the American people, but I think that realistically, I think deep down we all know, even if we don't want to say it, there is a very high probability, you look where we are, how late stage we kind of are in all this, there's a very high probability that we fail. There is. I always talk about it, but there's no guarantee that we take America back. As a matter of fact, the odds are stacked against us. So how come my content isn't constantly full of dooming and whatnot? Well, it's because I'm actually eternally white-pilled. Because, we know as Christians that the kind of struggles or whatever, like the problems we have in this life are, pale in comparison to the eternity of joy we feel in the next life, right? So, and we know that we will be vindicated in the end, right? And the wicked people that have thrown America down the drain will be judged in the end. So, what utility do we have to constantly be blackpilled about everything? John 3:16 leaves us eternally white-pilled. It's true. It's true. So, Chicago says, Vince, stop doomer talking, we will win. As we brought up when we were talking about the book of Job, we're not guaranteed that, okay? We're not. We're not guaranteed political victory over our country. I will say, again, let me say I don't pretend to know how God works with this stuff, right? I mean, it's his plan, it's in his hands. But pragmatically speaking, I don't know how much he cares necessarily to save a country that en masse doesn't believe in him. And, as this country abandons God and abandons Christ, now maybe it's part of his plan to bring it back, which hopefully, right? But it's just like, I don't know how necessarily guaranteed that all is. So, but I don't need to doom about that, right? Because I know that we ultimately win in the end anyway, so. The good news leaves me eternally white-pilled, I think. Jose Rodriguez says, this... I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know if that. I've never heard of that. Purple Panda says channeling your Christianity into politics is able to create an even stronger message and emotional tie. So true. So true. Paleo Nation says, what exactly is the fertility advantage when public schools and colleges are indoctrinating your children? It's called good parenting. Okay. It's exactly that. We have lukewarm parents, we have lukewarm conservatism, lukewarm Christianity. That's exactly the problem, isn't it? Isn't that the problem? Yeah, it's called it's literally it's called good parenting. Okay, okay, that's the solution here. Anonymous Animal says you need to start a caliphate. No, no, no. Even if we were to do that, we would not call it the Muslim Caliphate. Okay, that's just cringe. I don't know. We'd call ourselves Caesar or something, right? But not that. Okay, you could say calling you saying Caesar is pagan, but it extended into Christian Rome, so it's not pagan anymore, is it? But that's what we're calling it. We're not calling it Caliphate. Inshallah, no, no. Cringe. Storm Tracking says thoughts of tradcaths, and then sometimes wanting to wage war against fellow Christians. So tradcaths obviously there's nothing like inherently wrong with them. In theory, they are a good thing, right? I will say I think LARPing is a big problem in the community. And you're asking me my thoughts on it. Obviously, no community is immune to that. And yeah, I think sometimes the way they behave is not productive, right? Now, really, that's specifically almost the community I was talking about the most when I said that. Sometimes, their stuff on gender roles and hating women, quote unquote, is not biblical because it's not. And so, they ought to watch that sometimes. And on the wanting to wage war against fellow Christians part. Yeah, now I will say, obviously we ought to debate our differences, right? Debate the truth. We will debate, Protestants will debate Catholics, Orthodox, all over the place. But I think that there is definitely a case for denominational unity against, because we are all Christians. I know that people on all sides will say that we are not, but specifically I would say the Orthodox Church, the Catholic Church, and most of the Protestant churches. Okay. By the way, we don't claim the Unitarians. Let me say that Unitarians, Universalists, yeah, those are not Christian, but for the most part, okay. Those of us who agree on the person of Christ and on the Trinity itself, by definition we are Christian, right? So we are all Christians. And so with that said, I think that we definitely ought to have denominational unity politically and to an extent culturally against the real common enemy in our country, which we know is godless atheist liberalism. And obviously we have to talk about our differences. We have to debate those things. But it's I also would say that I don't think that a tradcath or a tradproth or whatever should approach a member of a different denomination, but ultimately of the same faith, right? That in the same way they would approach a liberal or whatever, right? I don't think it's productive to be calling someone who is genuinely this is not a cringe liberal. Well, this is someone who's genuinely another member of the faith alongside you. I think then there is to be, because obviously it's the internet. We do a little bit of trolling, but when that is said, I think that we definitely those conversations should be productive. You know what I mean? It's not productive to be cringe or ratio whatever each other or just animosity, viciously attacking, right? Other members of other denominations, for the most part, right? Now, if they're doing or saying something that's totally off the rails, of course, but just unprovoked, right? I think the conversations that we do have ought to be productive conversations and not cringe ratio, whatever. Reserve those things, reserve those tactics for the people who I think deserve them. And I think fellow brothers in Christ, brothers and sisters in Christ, I don't think that those are the appropriate tactics, right? So that's what I would say about it. Gary Hernandez says trad Catholics are cringe because they're no better than modernists. Imagine rejecting the authority of Rome yet declaring oneself to be Catholic. I don't know enough. I mean, I don't know enough about your claims to Roman authority to really comment on that. That's what I would say. Now, I will say, as a Protestant, I not really a fan of the current pope. Okay, I think he has a lot of problems. But I don't know exactly what because I heard mixed things. I always hear mixed things from Catholics. They can never agree. So I don't know what the exact specific doctrine is on the kind of being allowed to criticize the papacy or not. I never get a clear answer on it. But I will say I think that the current pope is someone with issues. Okay, and when I say issues, I mean that I think he has caved and really has become of the world on a lot of issues, whether it's like comparing George Floyd to like a good Samaritan, or kind of caving. I know he didn't fully cave, but caving a little bit on the homosexuality issue, right? Things like that. So I think he's someone with issues. I don't know. You know. What is your denomination? I'm non-denominational. I don't have one. Yeah, you can call me. You can say that's a cope all you want. Okay, I'm non-denominational. That's my denomination. That's because the left is psyoping the Pope. Are they? I've heard nothing but liberal. Well, I don't know in which way, but I've heard nothing but like liberal praise for the Pope. I remember when he like first took power, all the mainstream liberal media was like fawning over the guy and was like talking about how great he was. So I don't know in which direction they are. To my understanding, they actually like the current Pope. I think it was the last Pope they didn't like. So I don't know. John Paul II was epic though. We like John Paul II. Okay. Probably Nerdy says, "Are you looking around for denomination? Nazarenes are great, but I'm biased." I mean, kind of. I don't know. I mean, I might if I really decide I want to like pick up one at some point, but it's not like I'm just like in the process of like trying to decide which denomination. It's just like that's not really that's not really the reason I'm non-denominational. I'm just non-denominational, right? Noah says, my denomination is simply taking the best aspects out of each one. So true. So true. But that's usually when I talk about like scriptural issues in like on content, I try to basically just stick to scripture that we all can agree on, you know what I'm saying? So let's see. Make papal states real again. I endorse that. Okay, that's it's kind of epic actually. If it's Thou Crusader states, we'll have a state D, state A, and state O. It will be a third of the world each one. That's what's gonna happen. Our politics should be informed by religion. Good biblical political commentary is much needed in the conservative movement. So true. So true. Anthony Davis says shopping around for denominations is basically trying to make God fit you rather than trying to make yourself fit with God. I pretty much agree with that. I would agree, yeah. American Crusade says I could go to basically any Protestant church, but I would draw the line at going to a Calvinist one. I have fundamental disagreements with Calvinism. Um, I will say I think a lot of I wouldn't say you could go to basically any Protestant church. There's a lot of Protestant churches that have a lot of problems. Problems that I would say I am more fundamentally opposed to than something like Calvinism. But I understand what you're saying. Like would you say that you disagree with a Calvinist more than like a Unitarian Universalist? You know, we actually agree way more with Calvinists than with them. But I see what you're saying. Thoughts on birth control? I am anti-birth control. The pill has a lot of problems. The pill, quite frankly, is something that is a lot more dangerous than I think a lot of women realize when they are kind of put on it or they decide to take it, right? So thoughts on Quakerism? I don't know a lot about Quake. Are Quakers even still around, like in high numbers? I don't know. I don't know a lot. I really don't know much about Quakerism, other than they're pacifists. That's all I know about them. They're pacifists. Napa says things I don't understand about some Protestant churches are some made-up sins like alcohol consumption. Basically, a glass of wine is a sin for some Protestants, Baptists, for example. Well, again, I fully agree with you on that, right? That's part of the reason why I'm like, I was not specifically that, but like, I see what that's part of the reason why I'm like not super keen on like actually joining a denomination, but I mean this is true, right? Biblically, I understand. I kind of understand the logic, right? Because I definitely can see why you would say that it's best just to not touch any drop of alcohol. And honestly, I respect that opinion, right? I think you can definitely discern that. But biblically speaking, it's not. We're not told that drinking is a sin. We're clearly told drunkenness is a sin, right? It is not the drinking. As a matter of fact, we are told actually a few different times in the Old Testament. And most notably, actually, I don't have my phone on me, so I can't bring up the notes. But that actually, wine is described as being actually like the first few like sips, right? The few kind of buzz you feel is actually described as being a gift from the Lord, right? It is a gift from the Lord. It is something to like rejoice and enjoy and be thankful from the Lord for, right? And so I think it's actually made pretty clear biblically. But there's other contexts where it's like the leaders of the church cannot be drunkards, right? And there's like certain do not drink in this circumstance, right? But it's not scriptural. Now again, I'm not saying that to say you have to drink or whatever, like, but in terms of like making up a sin, it is true, yeah. And some Southern Baptists I know are very big on that, but it's not biblical, right? It's not biblical to say like one glass of wine is a sin. That's not in Scripture, right? Scripture actually basically says the opposite of that. It's and I know people the Baptists try to say, well, wine was different back then, but it's like, but it was, it wasn't alcoholic, but it was just grape juice. But if that's the case, why at multiple times throughout the Bible are we told, do not be drunk on wine? Like specifically those words, do not be drunk on wine. Clearly people were getting drunk on wine. It was alcoholic if it had the power to make people drunk. I don't understand the logic. So, but I understand what you're saying on that. I do. And so, that's the like one genuine. It's like you say you're sola scriptura, but that's not sola scriptura, right? That's outside, right? That's so. I definitely understand that. So, anyways, guys, I'm gonna wrap up the stream soon, probably right now. I have something to finish before midnight, so I don't want to be yoided. I don't want to be yeeted by that. So let's see. Should I wrap it up now? Oh, screw it. I'll wrap it up now. All right. But I'll see you guys later. Have a very good night. Pray for this wicked world, and pray for the pro-life conservatives and Christians, quote unquote, who justify the children of wrath, and who justify the evils of this wicked world. It's so true. But anyways, I'll see you guys later. Have a good night. Alpha moves only, and God bless. Peace.
In leaving it, I do so with this prayer. May God's grace be with you in all the days ahead.
He is a globalist, and we are nationalists. He believes in some Pax Universalis. We believe in the old republic. He would put America's wealth and power at the service of some vague new world order. We will put America first. So today we call for a new patriotism, where Americans begin to put the needs of Americans first. For a new nationalism, where in every negotiation, be it arms control or trade, the American side seeks advantage and victory for the United States. And the people of this country need to recapture our capital city of Washington from lobbyists and registered agents of foreign powers who are hired to look out for everybody and everything except the national interest of the United States. And our Western heritage is going to be handed down to future generations and not dumped onto some landfill called multiculturalism.
I know what you people are expecting. You're expecting another dramatic post-credit scene where I'm like, I did 7:14, or I run Jesus Christ fan, or I did 12:1 or 8:21 or whatever it is. Genuinely, I was gonna do something, but I literally can't think of anything. I don't know. What funny thing can I do for this post-credit scene? I don't really know. I don't really have one, to be totally honest with you. So I genuinely I don't know what big secret to reveal to you guys. Like, I'm gonna disappoint people now, because I genuinely don't have anything. So, Jose Rodriguez says, "Tell us what happened on 6/27. That was a day. So, okay, I'll tell you. So basically, what happened on 6/27?